appropriately, they thought that he was a member of a high-profile El Salvador gang. That I think it was the something 13. What was a Salvadoran? Anyway, part of that Salvadoran gang. He was deported for being involved in the gang, and it turns out there wasn't really what we call the necessary due process. Let's begin with a soundbite from ABC News that talks about this.
At a hearing that lasted nearly half an hour, federal judge Paula Sinise repeatedly asked a Justice Department attorney what she called basic questions. Where is Kilmar Abrego Garcia, and what has the government been doing to get him back? DOJ lawyer Drew Ensign said he couldn't answer those questions. In response, Judge Sinise said she'd require updates in writing each day on the government's efforts to track Abrego Garcia and to facilitate his return, saying the Supreme Court has now spoken quite clearly about the need for both. Stephen Portnoy, ABC News at U.S. District Court in Greenbelt, Maryland.
So Judge Sinise is a federal court judge in the state of Maryland. She made that order. It went up to the Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals, which is the circuit that oversees Maryland, and their center is in Virginia. That court said they were going to leave it in place. If you recall, the United States Supreme Court at least originally came in and said, wait a minute, let's take a time out on this, but they've now said no. Let's go back to the judge and put the order back in place. But they put a hook in that, Leah, and this is an interesting hook. They've said, look, you also need to decide, Judge, to what extent you are overriding the authority of the executive branch. In other words, it's one thing to say, hey, executive branch, you deported this man without any due process, without any hearing, without anything at all. But at one point, do we sort of weigh the balance between the federal, the judiciary and the executive branch when the executive is trying to do something in the nature of national security? And so they've taken steps, and I think the Trump administration has used some 1797 law about war, some War Powers Act, and saying, in wartime the executive branch has a little bit more authority to do certain things without going through the usual judicial process.
Right, except that they have decided you used your authority to deport this man to El Salvador. We are saying that was unconstitutional because he was married to a U.S. citizen, has a child who is a U.S. citizen, was not a member of the gang that you pretended he was a member of to make it possible for you to deport him.
Right.
And at some point,
right.
If I rule as a judge that the executive has behaved unconstitutionally, then, Greg, they have to make it right.
Exactly. Right. And this judge today was really frustrated with the lack of answers by the government. Here's something else that she had to say.
The government refused to provide any of those pieces of information that the judge ordered them to provide. Not only the information about what future steps they're planning to take, they even refused to answer the question about what they've done so far, and they even refused to answer the question about where Kilmar Abrego Garcia is today.
So I don't think that was actually the judge, right,
no,
Greg? That was
paraphrasing the judge.
Garcia's, wasn't that his attorney, right?
Exactly,
Talking
yes.
about why they are frustrated. And a little bit, Greg, for me, we on this show had a conversation about deporting people to El Salvador. And my response right out from the jump was, you know what? When something goes wrong, because guess what? Humans make mistakes, and something goes wrong, it will be almost impossible to fix. So if you had decided this man was a member of a gang and you put him in a jail in Maryland and 5 minutes later you figured out he wasn't a member of the gang, he's already home, right? Like we are not having this whole extended conversation.
And that extended conversation, you said it very well, Leah. What if the United States says to El Salvador, bring him back? And the El Salvadoran government says, no, he's here, he's under our jurisdiction, and you've lost that. You've lost that power. I don't see how the United States can enforce that. I mean, I guess if there's sort of an agreement, we're paying you $6 million to house these prisoners, and if you want another $6 million, you should play ball with us. But there's no legal authority by which a federal judge in the state of Maryland can compel the El Salvadoran government to produce a prisoner. You said it just right. Maryland going to a Virginia judge or a Texas judge or Utah judge, yeah, bring them back. El Salvador, it's not that easy.
Yeah, it's a whole other country.
Right, yeah, it's a real problem. Let's get some details about yesterday's ruling from ABC News correspondent Terry Morin.
All 9 justices upheld a lower court order directing the government to bring Kilmar Abrego Garcia back to the United States, where he's lived for almost a decade, married to a U.S. citizen. But the justices did send this case back down to the lower court, emphasizing that courts can't just tell the executive branch exactly how or exactly when Abrego Garcia should be returned to the United States.
So let me just ask you, Greg Skordas, right. KSL's legal analyst, tell me what it means, and I know we want to get to like the second point, but what does it mean when we've got all 9 of these justices agreeing? I feel like that doesn't happen that often.
I think that in partly, if you recall, when they were arguing this before, one of the federal judges, one of the federal lawyers that was arguing on behalf of the government said, yes, we made a mistake. He should not have been deported. So in some respect, the issue about deportability, that's not the right word because everyone's deportable, but whether he should have been deported, whether that was the correct decision, the federal lawyers arguing for the government agreed that they had done it wrong.
Okay, so all 9, but I guess I was trying to say, usually when they're unanimous, man, that is the Supreme Court speaking
pretty loud,
full throat, right? Like that is pretty loud. But what do they mean when they say, go back to the lower court, it's still the case that you've got to bring Garcia home, but you can't tell the executive branch how to do it. So is that why we hear the judge earlier saying to the government, you have to tell me every day what you're doing?
Yeah, and that's why the Justice Department has said that the court's ruling is the Supreme Court, like you just talked about, is the exclusive prerogative of the president to conduct foreign affairs. In other words, you have to weigh what you're doing in light of the president's ability to conduct foreign affairs. I mean, they answered the question, but then created, like you just said, a second question that nobody knows the answer to. So if you're this judge, you're saying, okay, it's back. You've got to produce the prisoner. You've got to say, and we need to do this because we think that the federal government overstepped, or we think that the federal government did something wrong. And the federal government's lawyers are going to come in and say, well, this MS-13 is a despicable gang. We have reason to believe he's there. We think we did everything right, and that's our prerogative. So I think this is an issue that's going to be a real
They don't
problem.
think they did everything right, because you said earlier they acknowledged they made a mistake. The question is they now don't want to acknowledge that sending people to El Salvador is a very bad decision-making process because they have no control and they've lost all power by doing that.
And didn't we talk about this a month or so ago, Leah, when we were talking about this El Salvadoran prison, and I think some U.S. authorities went and visited it and looked around. It's one of the biggest prisons in the world. It's one of the most notorious prisons in the Western Hemisphere. And boy, they've got a lot of empty rooms. They were looking for some tenants. The United States was willing to pony up some money. It seemed like the perfect fit, except for the Eighth Amendment's prohibition from cruel and unusual punishment and the inability of the United States to assure that prison is upholding that, because El Salvador isn't bound by the U.S. Constitution. So, I mean, I guess you could look at, international landlord-tenant law and say, what does that mean? But, it's I don't know what we're going to do. But anyway, it's back on the government's burden to bring him back. When we come back on Inside Sources, can non-citizens here in the United States be deported for their beliefs, especially if they go against the government's national interests? The federal government is claiming yes. More on that after the break.
The weather is absolutely gorgeous. We're in the month of April. There are so many special things that are going on, and Ruth's Chris Steakhouse is the place for that wonderful meal that you have been wanting for a long, long time. Get the family together. Make a date with that person you love at Ruth's Chris Steakhouse with the most delicious steak you have ever had, filet, New York, ribeye, and make sure that you have a chopped salad. That's the favorite for Dee and for me. But their wedge is wonderful as well. And of course, the mashed potatoes, the asparagus, the lobster mac, and of course, save room for a truly decadent dessert. I love the bread pudding. It's time to treat yourself to Ruth's Chris Steakhouse. Now, if you're catching a little spring skiing in the Park City area, have your meal at Hotel Park City Ruth's Chris Steakhouse. Or, of course, downtown Salt Lake City, 275 Southwest Temple.
Every year, we seem to have a few people trying to get our free furnace promotion after the sale has ended. What's up, everybody? I'm Mike Wilson with Any Hour Services, and I know you want to save as much money as you can, but that's not how sales work. When they're over, they're over. Lucky for you, we still have a few more spots on our schedule we need to fill, so I'm extending the sale, but I'm not quite sure for how much longer. Definitely no later than April 30th, and once I think our schedule's full enough, I gotta pull these ads, so don't wait too long to call and schedule your free estimate. Just to recap, when you have Any Hour Services install a new air conditioner, we'll give you a new furnace for just the cost to install it. About $400. The furnace is free, you just pay the labor. So if your furnace and air conditioner are ready to be replaced, don't be one of those people that wishes they had called and taken advantage of our free furnace sale. The estimate's free, and we'll make sure you have all of the information you need to decide if our free furnace sale is right for you. If you think you might be interested, call Any Hour Services at 801-443-7400. You can Google Any Hour Services. You can even schedule online at anyhourservices.com. No one helps more homeowners than Any Hour Services.
Attention! If you owe money to the IRS, this is an urgent message. The IRS is cracking down by sending out collection letters, garnishing paychecks, seizing bank accounts, and putting liens on homes and businesses. They call it enforced compliance, and you better watch out because penalties and interest on unpaid taxes compound daily, making it even harder to get out of debt. Don't let tax debt destroy your life. You need to call Optima Tax Relief, America's #1 tax resolution firm. They're experts in taxpayer assistance programs that can save you thousands if you qualify. A+ rated by the Better Business Bureau, Optima's resolved over $1 billion of tax debt for their clients. Let them fight on your behalf, helping to put your tax problems to rest. Call the tax professionals at Optima now for a free consultation.
Call 800-343-6460. 800-343-6460. 800-343-6460.
Optima Tax Relief.
Some restrictions apply. For complete details, please visit OptimaTaxRelief.com.
Celebrate National Serger Month with super deals on all sewing machines and sergers at Dave's Bernina in St. George and Provo.
0% interest for 18 months on certain machines. See store for details.
Purchase a new Bernina L890.
Get free gifts worth up to $1,600. Take advantage of $1,000 off the Bernina 475 QE.
Come see the Bernina 990, the most amazing revolutionary sewing machine in the world.
Dave's Bernina has big discounts on the Bernina L450, 460, and the L850 and 860 machines that include lots of free extras.
Amazing bargains on trade-ins, classroom, and demo machines that come with warranties.
Starting at $399. You'll love 20% off Serger feet, Serger studio cabinet, and Serger luggage.
Berninas provide unmatched quality and ease of use. Hurry in to Dave's Bernina, 691 East St. George Boulevard and 2017 North 550 West in Provo. Dave'sBernina.com.
KSL Broadcast Group contests are open to participants 18 years of age and older that are residents of Utah, unless otherwise specified. Employees or agents of the station, Bonneville International Corporation, other area radio stations, or any entity associated with the contest may not enter. Persons who have won in the last 30, 60, or 90 days from a station contest or event may not be eligible. Full general contest rules are available at kslnewsradio.com/contests.
Teens can get up to $200 with a Teen Learn and Earn account. Plus, continue earning rewards as they master the essentials of finance. More at cypresscu.com/teen.
Inside Sources. Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Columbia University activist Mahmoud Khalil is a legal, permanent U.S. resident. But the federal government is trying to deport him for his alleged anti-Semitic beliefs. The government was ordered to turn over evidence to the courts, and my understanding is they're in court right now, right? So we might learn something about it as we're speaking. The government was ordered to turn over evidence to the courts explaining why they felt he should be deported. Instead, they submitted a brief memo from the Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, who said that Khalil could be expelled for his beliefs. So basically, Rubio said Khalil's activities were otherwise lawful. Letting him remain in the country would undermine U.S. policy to combat anti-Semitism around the world and in the United States, in addition to efforts to protect Jewish students from harassment and violence in the United States. So I just want to let's talk about this. You've got me, Leah Murray, alongside Greg Skordas. So Greg, like a long time ago, I was in graduate school with a friend who was a refugee from Iran. So he was Armenian, and the Iranian people weren't really nice to the Armenian people. And so he was here on political asylum.
Right.
Okay. And I served as a character reference for him when he naturalized. So he became a United States citizen. And I said, what are you going to do? Like, the first thing you're going to do as a U.S. citizen, what's it going to be? And he literally said, Leah, what I want to do is like streak, right? Because I said, what? Like, why on earth of all the things? And he said, because even though I was here legally, even though I was right here on asylum, even though I had all the right papers, man, you have to behave perfectly because you never know the United States might deport you. And now that I'm a citizen, maybe I can get in some trouble.
I can do anything I want.
He was like, I could maybe get in some trouble. So my question for you is kind of like, is that what Marco Rubio was saying? That as a non-citizen, while we acknowledge that there's a First Amendment right and that people have the right to speak, actually, if you're a non-citizen, like my friend said like 25, 26 years ago when we talked about his experience, really they don't have the same access to those rights or those same protections.
And that's what Rubio was saying even when this person was taken into custody. He made it sound like this. Even if you're here as a on a student visa or work visa, you're a guest. And so it's a privilege for you to be here, not necessarily a right. Given that it's a privilege and not a right, and I'm sort of paraphrasing, what he said was, and so if you're going to come into our country with that background, just pay attention. Pay attention to the rules. Don't be an activist. Don't do things that you and I could have done that all day long, and there's nothing the government could have done with respect to deportation. But what he was trying to say was, boy, you're here as our guest, and we're doing you a favor. So don't go out of your way to do things that are against our necessarily our national interest or what we stand for as a government. Just mind your own business and do what you're supposed to do and attend your classes and do what work hard, do everything you're doing, but don't speak out. Don't be an activist.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting, and let me just kind of ask you, do you agree with that position? So is it the case that these amendments, right, the things that we hold, to be like, I don't know, what did Jefferson say? Self-evident, right. These truths, that they only apply once you are a citizen, and that human beings who are here as guests in our country don't have the same protections, that they don't actually get those self-evident truths?
I don't agree at all with it.
Okay.
I don't think, and that's not what we've done historically in this country. And what we're talking about
okay, so
here,
tell me. I thought you were going to say it's jurisprudence or it's the law, but what you just said. Okay.
I mean, especially, I guess I can understand if a person's in this country and they commit certain crime, then it's a fairly straightforward process. Because if you and I commit a crime, we get convicted, we go to jail, we do whatever. But if someone's here under some certain circumstances like that, they commit a crime, they have an additional punishment. That is, they can be deported, they can be taken out of the country. But this is exercising a right.
Pause real quick. Do they still have access to the other amendments, like the 4th through 8th?
Well, that's.
Like, would there be due process even if it was a crime?
That's kind of what we talked about in the last segment. You're exactly right. Of course, historically we've always allowed due process.
So this is recent.
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, I think just, I know we're backing up a lot here, but one of the things Trump talked about when he was running was that we've gone a little bit too far with due process. That it's taking so long to deport people that what we do is they're deportable. They commit a crime. We take them to immigration court. We release them on bail while the proceedings are going, and 3 years later, maybe they're deported, maybe they're not. Maybe they're not even here. And he's like, no, this due process has gone too far. Now, I'm jumping off ship here a little bit. This is a little different because this one involves what you and I would both call right to free speech, First Amendment, which, I mean, that type of transgression or violation or pushing the envelope hasn't been historically something that we have used in our country as a means or method of taking someone out of the country. The fact that they're exercising their First Amendment right in a way we don't like, in a way that is offensive.
Yeah, so that's interesting, right? So it's not, man, I was hoping you were going to say we always do this, but the answer is no, this is a recent phenomenon.
I've never seen it.
All of these amendments are now only going to be applied to non-citizens who agree with President Trump.
Kind of. I mean, all of these amendments apply to U.S. citizens who are here legally and not here and not here as a guest of the United States on a student visa or a work visa.
All right, but how far does it take, or how long does it take? How far, like when we start to move this line, so we're like, these are self-evident truths that all men, right, have the right to free speech. Congress shall make no law infringing free speech. Right? How fast do we then say, oh, it's not just guests, but also any humans who live within our borders, if they are speaking in such a way that President Trump doesn't like, Marco Rubio can make the case, well, how did he say it was beautiful? While it's otherwise lawful, it is undermining U.S. policy.
Well, that's why we have the third branch of government. And that's why the courts are going to have to weigh in on this.
Okay.
Because the executive branch has said the American people have given us a mandate, and that is to get people out of this country who are not here legally or who are causing problems. And Trump clearly believes that's his mandate. Promises made, promises kept. And he's following that, and his people are following that, and Marco Rubio's following that. The Supreme Court may very well, as they did in the last segment, which we talked about, say, let's put the brakes on this a little bit. We still have the Sixth Amendment. We still have the Fifth Amendment. We still have the right to due process. We still have a right to a hearing. They still have a right to confront the evidence against you before we do something, taking away a fundamental right, which is being in this country. We grant you that privilege. We grant you that temporary citizenship. What was he, a lawful permanent resident?
Mm-hmm.
And say, boy, stay here, work hard, do what you need to do. Now we're saying, but don't express your beliefs and cause problems. Don't rock the boat. We have never done that. I mean, maybe the McCarthy era or something. I mean, I can't think of it. In my lifetime, I cannot think of anyone who's been deported from the United States for a First Amendment allegation.
Yeah, and I guess for me, that's the rub, right? So I think over the years, you and I have discussed what's been happening on campuses.
Mm-hmm.
We have discussed Israel and Gaza and Palestine. We have talked about these things. It is never, I think, the case that I ever would have argued that if someone held a position that was more pro-Palestinian than mine own, because I'm a little pro-Israel on this, that person therefore doesn't get to speak.
Right.
My goodness, what I want is them speaking.
Right.
So then I can engage what I think is probably their wrong idea, but I need to be able to talk about it with them.
Yeah, and when did we remember seeing college presidents losing their jobs over not being able to enforce it the way they should? I mean, we're turning the First Amendment on its head a little bit, Leah, and it's sad. And that's why your original question me, do I agree with this? I don't agree with this at all. But I have enough confidence in the courts that someone's going to rein in the administration and say, wait a minute, if once you grant someone that right to be in this country as a lawful permanent resident, they should have at least some of the rights that the rest of us do, at least as it relates to the exercise of the First Amendment. I mean, clearly it's different if you commit a crime. You do the crime, you do the time, and you may very well be deported if you're not here, if you're not a resident. But we just haven't done this for people just expressing their beliefs or protesting something on campus.
When Inside Sources returned, Utah's own Senator John Curtis is heading up two large initiatives in the Senate. The good senator will join us to talk about both. Stay with us.
1:30 at KSL News Radio. I'm Heather Peterson. KSL's top story this hour. Tonight is the last home game of the season for the Utah Jazz. The team will finish the season Sunday with their worst record in franchise history, but they're on track to have the best odds at landing the top pick in the next NBA draft. Local fan Richard Hicks says he'd be thrilled if that happens.
This is also one of my home states, so I want to see them prosper. I want to see them win, So if anything, if they land that number one pick, it just gives me more to brag about.
The Jazz are already guaranteed a 14% of landing the next number one pick, and analysts almost unanimously say they'll go with 18-year-old Duke star Cooper Flagg. Our top national story this hour from ABC News. U.S. and Iranian officials are set to meet tomorrow for talks on a nuclear deal. President Trump pulled out of the Obama-era Iran nuclear deal in 2018. Former Deputy Secretary of State Wendy Sherman helped negotiate it and wishes the U.S. all the best in its effort to reach another agreement.
Although, obviously, the president has tremendous faith in Steve Witkoff, this is a very technical negotiation. And Abbas Araghchi, the foreign minister, was my counterpart during the negotiations. He's very tough. He's very smart. His English is perfect. He knows all these technical details.
Recently, Trump has threatened possible military action to keep Iran from developing nuclear weapons. Your money at this moment. The Dow is up 654 points. The S&P up 95, and the NASDAQ up 317. Coming up, a beautiful day today, but this weekend a little different. KSL weather is next. KSL News Time, 1:31.
The sources where we get our news matters.
When you listen to Utah's Morning News, we want you to feel the stories are important to you and trustworthy. This is Amanda Dixon.
And I'm Andy Farnsworth. Join us weekday mornings on KSL News Radio.
I've done multiple different eating plans before. They helped me get weight off, but boom, 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 it all just came back with a vengeance.
Stop wasting time and money on plans that don't work. Trust the #1 weight loss company in America, Soda Weight Loss.
My name's Jim. In 5 months, I dropped over 65 pounds.
Hi, I'm Jared. I'm at 21 weeks. I've lost 110 pounds.
I tried to do it on my own, and I think it's discouraging when you try over and over again and you just get nowhere. You have the experts here. If you're on the fence, I mean, if it hasn't worked out on your own, these are the people to do it.
When you start losing the weight, even that first 5 pounds, this enormous amount of confidence starts to build into you. You start to realize, like, oh, this is possible for me.
No shots, no medications, just real results that last for a lifetime.
How about this? When you join Soda Weight Loss with a partner, you only pay for one. Get started now. Go to sodaweightloss.com. That's SOTA weightloss.com.
Soda is, say it with me, state of the art.
Do you need new windows? Look, all glass pretty much looks the same to the naked eye, but if your windows aren't triple-coated, argon-filled and sealed double-pane glass, the cold is seeping in. You need to call Advanced Window Products. They use the highest quality glass and premium vinyl to create state-of-the-art windows and frames, and for 38 years, they build those frames right here in Utah. Custom crafted for Utah's climate. The best windows you can buy at prices 30 and 40% less than what the big companies charge because they cut out the middleman. They're the factory. They even give you a lifetime warranty, and right now as we head into spring, save an extra $2,500 off 10 windows or more. Custom windows that'll give your house a fresh new look and save you money on your heating and air conditioning. Advanced Windows offers 60-month 0% financing, even buy now, pay later, and an extra $2,500 off. Call for a quote, 801-850-9100. That's 801-850-9100, or go to advancedwindows.com.
This is the story of the one who, as a maintenance specialist for a historic high-rise, knows that vintage charm historically needs constant attention. Which is why when it's time to upgrade turn-of-the-century mechanicals, they turn to Grainger. With easy access to 1 million+ products and the scale to deliver when and where you need them. The right tools and supplies are never far away. So the one can keep that vintage building running like new. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Listen up, fellow Gen Xers. Elizabeth Banks here. The recommended age for pneumococcal pneumonia vaccination has been lowered to 50 and older, even if you're healthy. It's up to us to lead the way. We've done this before. Music videos, fanny packs, even the World Wide Web. Let's do it again and get vaccinated, because we're at over 6 times greater risk for pneumococcal pneumonia. Gen X, this is our shot. Visit VaxAssist.com and schedule a vaccine today. Sponsored by Pfizer.
Traffic and weather together, brought to you by Mountain America's MyStyle checking account with built-in benefits. Here's Tito Nani.
We have a crash on westbound SR 201 approaching 7200 West, blocking the right lane with delays building. And in Utah County, a small accident on University Parkway to southbound I-15 in Orem. Text us on the KSL Mountain Home Services text line at 57500. Break your routine and into adventure in Cedar City, Bryan Head. Connected to nature, Cedar City makes spring the best break ever. Shopping, dining, and recreation galore. Break up your adventure. Visit cedarcity.com. In the KSL Traffic Center, I'm Tito Nani.
We could set a record today if we hit or pass the predicted high of 83 degrees, but the wind will pick up as we head into the weekend. We should see a high of 74 on Saturday, then back down to 60 on Sunday. Right now it's partly cloudy and 81 degrees. I'm Heather Peterson from the KSL Calm and Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at kslnewsradio.com. We're Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Inside Sources. Inside Sources. Utah's top political experts break down the first 100 days of the new administration and discuss the day's biggest stories. Only on KSL News Radio.
Energy dominance doesn't come without a cost. And while Congress works on the full budget and tax package, Utah Senator John Curtis is asking congressional leaders to keep some of the energy tax credits put in place by the Biden administration. Senator Curtis is also looking at ways to fix and improve our forests, something we here in the West are all too familiar with. We're going to chat with Senator Curtis about all of these things. Welcome to the show, Senator.
Oh, it's great to be with you. We need to do this more often.
I love that.
It's been a little while since you were a candidate.
There's so much to talk about.
But pause real quick. Senator Curtis, are you wearing very cool socks?
The coolest. Now that we have the substance out of the way.
Yeah, let's get the most important thing out of the way.
So we're looking at a letter dated Wednesday, Senator, that you and three other Republican senators wrote to Senate Majority Leader Thune, talking about, hey, we need to keep America's energy security and economic growth in place, and maybe support some of the things that we're now setting aside. Tell us about the letter, why you co-authored it, and what you're thinking right now.
There are a number of provisions that were put into place. I know this will shock your listeners under the Biden administration that actually supported a number of what I would call Republican energy priorities. And just off the top of my head, nuclear is one of those. Carbon sequestration is one of those, and there's some others. And our letter, the purpose of our letter was not to say, hey, you have to do this, because we know as well as anybody the demands right now on cuts. Our letter was simply to say, be careful and, measure twice, cut once, if that makes sense. And we're very well aware that cuts need to be made, but some of these are projects that we're right in the middle of. Some of them, if we were to take the carpet out now, companies have invested billions of dollars to make it happen, and I think that would be problematic. Some of them are projects that are keeping energy rates low for Utahns, and so we want to be really careful with that. And some of them deal, as you said at the top of the interview, deal with energy dominance, which is very important for national security.
Senator Curtis, in this letter you say, or the four of you say, we urge a targeted, pragmatic approach that balances priorities without undercutting what you just talked about, future private sector investment. I'm just, and I don't mean to pick on our president, but a little bit, Senator Curtis, I don't know. How do I say? I don't know that targeting and pragmatics really like watchwords right now in Washington. Can you talk to us about, and you're laughing at me a little bit, but, talk to us about what are the possibilities?
Yeah, you're like, there's got to be an oxymoron in there, right, for government. And I think it's fair to say it's not just our current president. It's just Washington, D.C. in general. And I think that underscores, again, why the letter. Let's be thoughtful about this. Let's not make cuts just because they feel good or because they're political, but let's make them because it's the right place to make cuts. And we have plenty of cutting to do. And so that's our ask, is be thoughtful and let's make sure we're making good decisions.
All right, Senator, I just want to pivot. Another press release you have today. So you've got a bill, and I think it's going to be called the Curtis Forestry Bill, but it's a Fix Our Forest Act. Can you tell us about what you're doing with that?
Yes, it's called Fix Our Forest. It's a big deal, and as your listeners know, as both of you know, forest fires are an increasing problem. We saw the devastation in California, and I think particularly about Brian Head. Remember that a couple of years ago. I was up there just a few weeks ago, and when that happened, everybody said if we had just been able to manage our forest, we could have prevented this fire, and that is really very true. And this bill gives the Forest Service, gives people the ability to go in and manage the forest in a way that we've all wanted to do. And the beauty of it is, it actually has the consensus and buy-in of both sides here. And as you well know, there's a lot of sometimes really tough debate on environmental issues and how we manage our forest. And I'm just really pleased. We have two Republicans, 2 Democrats in the Senate. This has gone through the House before. It's a really good bill, and it's a big deal for Utah and forest fires.
Senator, what does managing the forest mean to you, and in respect to what we're doing now, and how managing the forest under this would change what we're currently doing?
Each forest is unique, But I'll tell you one thing that just pops into a lot of people's mind is removing the dead fuel on the forest floor. Or if there's beetle kill and you've got to go through and remove those dead trees. And some of the environmental restrictions in the past have prevented that from happening. And this, I just want to be really clear, is not a full license just to go in and take down, right, whatever you want. This is still very careful. It's still protecting our forest, but it speeds up the approval process. It gives people the resources they need, and so they can go and move, just for one example, remove that dead timber from the forest floor, which becomes so problematic when it gets dry and you have that fuel on the floor. Senator,
I feel like bipartisanship seems like a relic, right? Like we don't even have this anymore. But this, like you talked about, from both sides of the aisle, this bill has got both Democrat and Republican support. Can you tell us why that matters? Like why it's important to work across the aisle? Yeah.
Just terrific question. Look, we happen to have the House, the Senate, and the presidency now. That's rare. We know that. But even at that, you need 60 votes for most things. And if you can't, which means if you can't pick up people from the other party, you can't pass legislation. And I think America, if there's one message I hear loud and clear, it's like, get something done, right? Do things and be smart, right? And so there's a big difference too between what people call compromise and consensus. This is a consensus bill. It's not a compromise bill. Compromise is you give up things you really want. Consensus is you work at a much higher level until you find the cross section between what you need and what somebody needs out of the bill. And instead of giving up things, everybody comes away with some good wins.
Senator Curtis, you're a freshman. You've been a senator for less than 100 days, but we see you on Face the Nation. We see you in the news. We see these press releases. We see these letters. I mean, you're just so active. You're doing so much right now. What is it that you're concerned about? What is it that's going on? Or maybe that's just how you are. Maybe that's just how you're going to be. But it just seems like you're so active in everything you're doing right now in the Senate.
Well, thank you. That's a great compliment. And I've got to give a shout out to my team. We have a team that loves to run hard and fast and loves to get things done. I can't tell you, this bill doesn't come about without some amazing staff, one in particular that's just been an all-star. And so that's a great compliment. That's our goal. We want to work hard and not just on issues, but Utah issues. And I think that's most of the bills that we put into law when I was over in the House were issues that actually came to us from constituents, and oftentimes with the suggested way to fix it. And I think that's what Utahns really appreciate and actually, quite frankly, expect.
Senator Curtis, thanks again for joining us, and thanks for always being available and talking to us here on the air.
Of course. Yeah, let's do it again soon. Thanks.
I think we will do it again soon, don't you think?
Yeah, and I love your point there at the end. He's working hard.
I know.
It's not, and the thing is, like, it's not, how do I say, just noise, right? Like your point, he's on Meet the Press, but it's not for the point of being on Meet the Press. It's for the work for his constituents.
Yeah, and the bipartisanship that he's trying to bring to the Senate and to our country as a whole, I think is really refreshing. When we come back on Inside Sources, let's go up to Canada and discuss some potential partnerships that could come from a recent trade mission from Utah's leaders, including our governor, to our northerly neighbor. Stay with us.
Comcast Business helps turn today's small businesses into engines of modern business. It's how restaurants become reliably up and running neighborhood favorites. How retailers become seamlessly restocking, cybersecurity must-visit shops. And how healthcare offices become the data managing caregivers that we all depend on. With reliable connectivity, enhanced cybersecurity, advanced fiber solutions, and Wi-Fi backup, Comcast Business is powering the engine of modern business, powering possibilities.
Now through April 21st, new customers can get started with 150 megabit internet and security edge for $49.99 a month for 12 months with a 2-year agreement. Plus, ask how to get a $500 prepaid card on a qualifying internet package. Call today. Restrictions apply. Not available in all areas. Requires enrollment in paperless billing and automatic payments with bank account. Equipment, taxes, and other fees extra and subject to change. Early termination fee applies.
This is a story of the one. As a maintenance specialist for university housing, he knows college students can major in wear and tear. Plus, housing so many students doesn't leave a lot of room to house all the supplies he needs. That's where Grainger comes in. With over 1 million industrial-grade products and fast, dependable delivery, Grainger carries the quality products he needs so he doesn't have to. From a new door hinge to a whole new faucet. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Seems everything costs more these days. Gas, groceries, and when's the last time you checked your wireless bill? When it comes to big wireless, if you're staying, you may be overpaying. Switch to Consumer Cellular to get the same fast nationwide coverage without the big wireless bill. Plans start at just $20 a month, and now for a limited time, new customers can get their second month free. Call 1-888-FREEDOM, visit a store near you, or consumercellular.com and start saving today. Plans include $5 credit for autopay and e-billing. Taxes, fees, and other third-party charges will apply. See website for additional details.
If you're ready to buy a home or sell a home and you're worried about the current real estate market because of what you've heard from some of your friends or family, well, we're here to tell you that you really shouldn't be worried because now is a great time to buy and sell with our friends at the Stern Team, powered by Omada Real Estate.
And here's why. Buyers have more options due to increased inventory, which gives them the power to negotiate for repairs, interest rate buy-downs, and closing cost assistance. While at the same time, sellers are still getting top dollar for their homes, with home values that are higher today than ever before. So whether you're looking to buy or sell, the current real estate market presents a win-win opportunity for both buyers and sellers.
But you still do want to make sure that you're working with a team of real estate experts you can trust that can get you some great results. And that's our friends at the Stern Team, powered by Omada Real Estate.
They have helped thousands of Salt Lake City homeowners, and they're ready to help you. To get started, just go to thesternteam.com. That's thesternteam.com, or Google The Stern Team.
Ooh, ma.
What was that?
That is business phone bliss with the Ooma Cloud Phone System. It handles all our voice, video, and messaging needs.
You sound very...
Calm? I am. Ooma has everything I need to run my business more efficiently, like virtual receptionist, call routing, and video conferencing. And it starts at just $19.95 per month per user, plus taxes and fees.
Ooma.
Nice. Find your business calm at ooma.com/radio.
What if your business could see beyond what is and into what can be? What if you could create more impact in every decision? What if you had a partner as visionary as you are? With Bank of America, you get access to our trusted experts, real-time insights, and digital tools. So whether you run a local shop or a global enterprise, you're backed by business solutions to make every move matter. What would you like the power to do? Find out how at bankofamerica.com/banking for business. Bank of America is proud to be the official bank sponsor of FIFA World Cup 2026.
Troy, I don't know if you know this, but we're a big deal.
Are we?
Oh, yeah.
Can you be a big deal and still live with your mom?
Who do you think told me? But honestly, who else but Bitches brings back show pricing on all RVs this far into spring just so everyone gets the best price possible?
That actually is a really big deal. No one does that.
See? We are a big deal.
The sale is a big deal.
The big deal is talking.
Get into Bish's RV for second chance show pricing for a limited time.
We're talking travel trailers starting under $129 per month on approved credit.
Clearance pricing on all remaining new in stock 2024s.
And enjoy 0 payments until July. OAC.
And here's the really big deal. Every RV purchase gets free propane refills for life as long as you own the RV.
Start shoving the best deals now at bitches.com.
Don't miss your very last chance at the best show pricing deals around. Only for a limited time at Bish's RV of Salt Lake and American Fork, where memories begin.
Based on approved credit, 20% down, 8.99% APR for 180 months. Stock numbers 89912-81734. Subject to prior sale. See dealer details.
Any Hour Services can help unclog any drain in your house. Whether you have a backup, a clog, or a slow drain you want fixed, call Any Hour Services or visit anyhourservices.com.
Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Artificial intelligence, one of the biggest buzzwords in technology right now. And you know what, Greg Skordas? Utah is a technology-friendly state. So it does feel like artificial intelligence, I don't know, is going to be part of what we do here in Utah. So pause real quick, Greg. Do you use AI?
I have never used AI.
Do you remember way back in the day on KSL at night, we did a segment on AI, and of course I was teasing you as often my want when I am having conversations with you, and we talked about lawyers who used AI
and got in trouble.
Because their briefs were not written well, or they were citing cases that actually didn't exist. I don't even know how long ago that was, maybe a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
I feel like AI's come a long way, but you still haven't ever opened ChatGPT and tried it.
I'll be honest about this. I don't know how to. I wouldn't know. I mean, do you get an app? Do you go buy? You know what I mean? Like, I don't know where ChatGPT is.
Oh
Is
my
it?
gosh.
You don't go to the Best Buy and pick up the ChatGPT box. I mean, I'm serious, and I'm not just being an idiot, which I am. But is it because it costs money? ChatGPT. I mean, you have to buy it, don't you?
Oh my
I'm
gosh.
sorry.
This
I'm
is my
embarrassing.
favorite conversation we've had in a minute, Greg. I appreciate so much
I've never used it.
your total honesty. Yeah, I use AI a lot. So one of the features that I have in all of my word processing is something called Grammarly, which basically says, man, the way you just wrote that, actually, you probably have used AI.
Absolutely, I have. And what
And
you
that,
just
right,
described,
right,
yes.
right. So if it's like that word's not working in this
Right.
space or whatever, and it gives you just a little bit of help to figure out how, do you know what I mean? Like the words could be put together. ChatGPT, if you just like wrote that into a browser, you know what I mean? Like put that into Google, you could find it. You don't have to go to Best Buy and buy a box. I
was just hanging thinking she's going to ask me if I know what a browser is. And you moved right on, so thank you.
Oh my gosh, because you don't know what
Because
a
I don't know what a
browser
browser is.
Greg,
I know that
spoil
I
us.
can browse the internet, and I suppose I become a browser
So,
when I do that.
yes,
But and maybe
as-
I'm using a browser when I do that. But I'm sorry.
Okay.
You know, I'm. It's like
We haven't done this in a while. I feel like
Scrooge
this
in A
needs
Christmas
to be a
Carol.
segment.
I'm
Yeah.
too old to change. I can't change.
Okay. Well, I'm going to tell you what. You just got to get on board here with AI, Greg, because Utah, Governor Cox and other Utah leaders just traveled through Canada, meeting leaders in energy, which I already talked about energy, right? So we had
Right.
Senator Curtis in the last segment, and talking about AI, hoping to learn, information, hot takes, maybe best practices to bring home to Utah artificial intelligence and make us the next global hub.
And remember when we were talking about this expected trip was right after the tariff disaster, and I think Governor Cox was the first United States governor to travel to Canada after that. I know this is a little bit different than what we're talking about, but this was a bold move.
I know exactly what you're doing.
This
You're
was
like, I'd rather talk about tariffs than AI.
No.
'cause I actually know what a tariff is.
But I just want to talk about Utah's leaders doing a great thing and partnering with Canada and going up to Canada and saying, "Hey, we're friends. Let's try to make this right." I think that was an incredible thing to do. And Utah has Silicon Slopes. We do have a great technology-friendly part of our state and it's getting bigger and bigger. And we've got this huge part of the state down where we used to have a prison, and I've always wondered what's going to happen there. And I think what we're going to do is expand our technology-friendly sector of the state into that area and start building some things. I think it's the greatest idea in the world.
Okay, so during the state's 2025 legislative session, lawmakers approved $36.5 million and recommended $63.5 million in the next year's budget to build, I love the name of this, Convergence Hall. Doesn't that just sound like a sci-fi
Yeah, I love it.
cool movie? Okay, which would be a state-owned complex at the Point Development in Draper, like you just said,
Right.
where the prison once stood. And they envision a hub where investors, students, professors, government agencies will build, right, like all this innovation, world-class library, conference, just making all of this possible to start, really leveraging, what's the word I'm looking for? Harnessing
Right.
the capacity for AI. Up in Canada, in Quebec, the Mila Quebec Artificial Intelligence Institute did the same thing, right? So it has got, it had published 2,600 articles on AI. There are 734 current research projects, more than 40 successful startups over the last 3 years using AI in medical research, power grid resilience, product design, right? I mean, the cool thing is like, can I say to AI, in the same way that I need AI to catch, did I just write something wrong, right? My Grammarly that does that. Could I put in and say, I want a pair of pants, right? That is super comfortable to hike in and not super hot. What is the right fabric? What is the right,
Sure.
do you know what I mean? Like rayon to cotton, like blend
Right.
or whatever to make that possible. I think that's going to be super cool.
Oh, no, I think it's going to be a great thing for the state. It's going to be a great thing for the country, and it's going to be a good thing for relations between the United States and Canada as we move forward. I'm looking at some of the you talked about the amount of money, the $100 million total investment that the legislature is putting into this, there's got to be a big power grid, for example, that's got to be created for this. I hadn't thought about that, but if you're going to have this level of sophistication, so you've got to power it.
No, I do think the whole conversation around energy in the state legislature, often juxtaposed with, for example, when we bring AI to the state, we need to have enough energy to run the AI, right?
We talked last week about we had a couple guests talking pro and con about nuclear for this very subject, which is we've got to get energy to power a lot of what's happening in the future. Where's that going to come from?
And the other thing I thought was cool about this trip to Canada is it wasn't just us going up and being like, how can we do this well? I understand from the article that I was reading that Senator Cullimore said that the AI policy experts in Canada were taking note of how Utah, which was the first state in the union to pass legislation saying that companies will be held liable if their use of AI violates consumer protection laws. So like the AI experts in Mila in Quebec were saying, we see what you're doing. Maybe we can get Canada to move in that direction as well. And Senator Cullimore saying they actually praised Utah for being on the forefront of this. So let's be clear.
That's an interesting thing to be on the forefront of. But I can understand why that's important. That we're the first state to pass legislation clarifying that companies can be held liable if their use of AI violates consumer protection laws.
Why do you find that interesting?
I guess I hadn't thought about AI violating consumer protection laws, but I'm sure it's all over the place. I'm sure there's every potential for that.
And I think we talked on KSL at night, Greg, didn't we, about the use of AI in images?
Yes.
Do you remember? And we were having conversations about how the state should really move in to protect people's privacy, that you couldn't use AI, right, to put stuff out. I'm just looking at you and remember talking about this, right?
Yes, I remember that.
So, and I do think what's interesting about Utah is they do care about this, right? Like we're moving in and being like, you can't be doing this on TikTok, can't be doing this on Instagram. Like we were in those spaces. What I love about it is it's not Utah being like, we just want all the fun of AI without any of the regulations,
exactly.
Right?
No,
Utah's
you're right.
like, no, we want to harness the potential magic that is here and also make sure that we protect our citizens from the potential harms that we can see.
Yeah, and the legislation also includes some language that would create the first in the nation policy creating the Office of Artificial Intelligence. So we're looking at it in the big picture, not only the infrastructure, not only the energy that it's going to take, but let's talk about the regulation. Let's talk about how we're going to make sure that this is done in a way that's not going to cause problems down the road, because AI has the potential to blow up, to be overwhelming, and you've got to rein it in. And it seems like Utah's done that, and the people in Canada are looking at that going, hey, tell us what you've done. Tell us how you're doing that. Maybe we can partner up.
Do you know what?
What?
We will know that Utah has successfully embraced, fully brought into the fold artificial intelligence when Greg Skordas can find it on his browser.
That's a deal. I'm going to look it up this
weekend. You to go and see if you can figure out where ChatGPT is. Coming up in the second hour of Inside Sources, we'll discuss the latest developments with 2 Utahns who are facing the death penalty in Congo. Stay with us.
KSL FM Midvale.
KSL Salt Lake City.
From the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios, this is KSL News Radio.
Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Good afternoon. It's 2 o'clock at KSL News Radio. I'm Maria Shaleos. KSL's top story. A national trend revolving around the Minecraft movie where fans throw popcorn, drinks, and celebrate with the character Steve, as he says, chicken jockey. It led to a group of Provo students. It led them to bring a chicken to the theaters.
All I wanted to do is just hold up my chicken. So I got on my friend's shoulders and held the chicken up in the air.
Student Chuck Nadal says he brought the chicken and he wants to address public concerns.
The chicken was okay. It survived, and it's also a chicken.
He says he returned the chicken to a farm alive and well. He says he has no regrets, but does wish that they could have helped clean up the theater. Our top national story this hour from ABC News. Crash of a small plane near Florida's Boca Raton Airport leaves all 3 aboard dead and a major highway nearby shut for a while.
In addition to all 3 aboard the twin-engine Cessna killed,
one gentleman on the ground he hit a tree because of all the debris and the fire.
It's non-life-threatening injuries on him.
Michael LaSalle, Assistant Fire Chief, Boca Raton Fire Rescue. He says police got a report of a plane with mechanical trouble. The fiery crash forced closure of Interstate 95 in Boca. The FAA says the plane took off from Boca Raton, headed to Tallahassee International Airport.
That is ABC's Chuck Sievertson. Taking a look at your money at this moment, the Dow ending the week up 619 points, about 1.5%, sitting at 40,212. S&P 500 up by 95 points. The NASDAQ up by more than 2%, up 337 points. The clouds have moved in, but are we going to see some wet weather? We'll check the forecast coming up next. KSL News Time, 2:01.
Mornings are for recharging.
And they're for starting your day right.
We volunteer to join you in the car. Get news and weather at 102.7 FM during the most important part of your day.
Andy and Amanda, each morning between 5 and 9 on KSL News Radio.
This is the story of the one who, as a maintenance specialist for a historic high-rise, knows that vintage charm historically needs constant attention. Which is why when it's time to upgrade turn-of-the-century mechanicals, they turn to Grainger. With easy access to 1 million+ products and the scale to deliver when and where you need them. The right tools and supplies are never far away. So the one can keep that vintage building running like new. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Welcome to Staples.
Hi, I hear Staples prints it all.
Oh, you bet. Posters, banners.
Can you print it all for Mother's Day?
Oh, of course. Photo gifts like canvas prints, photo puzzles.
Can you print it all for graduation?
Sure can. Custom cards and invites.
Can you print a huge banner with the grad's picture?
Oh, definitely.
Even an embarrassing baby picture?
Oh, those are the best kind.
I know, right?
Print it all for moms and grads at Staples. And right now, get 40% off custom cards, invites, and photo gifts. N75 exclusions apply. Visit staples.com/print for details.
As a business owner looking to take your business to the next level, it's all about the right marketing. But what exactly is right for you? At KSL News Radio, we are ready to help you craft the perfect comprehensive strategy. Whether it's our powerful talent endorsements, engaging live interviews, creative production, live events, or our extensive digital platforms, we've got you covered with the right solution. Contact Stephanie Palmer today, spalmer@ksl.com, and let's grow your business together. Email spalmer@ksl.com.
Everyone needs a checking account, so get the one with built-in benefits to complement your unique lifestyle. Mountain America's My Style Checking has perks no one can pass up. You'll enjoy sizzling restaurant deals, peace of mind mobile phone protection, timely telehealth access, built-in identity protection, and clutch loan rate discounts. Make My Style your lifestyle at Mountain America Credit Union. Visit macu.com/mystyle. Insured by NCUA. Membership required based on eligibility. Some benefits require no cost registration or activation. Terms, conditions, and exclusions apply.
Hi, this is Doug Wright. For years now, I've been telling you about Connecticut soft water systems that use 2/3 less salt than the others. But I've never told you exactly how they do that. Well, there are several ways, so consider this as part one in a series. Most of the softeners out there use a finicky, hard-to-adjust computer to guesstimate when to cycle, and it errs on the side of cycling too often, which means it'll burn through way too much salt way too soon. Connecticut is different. It has an all-mechanical system that measures the water precisely. No computer, no guesstimating, so it cycles only when needed. The result, Connecticut delivers perfectly soft water 24/7 using minimal salt. So why not save your lower back from carrying the 3 bags of salt when all you need is 1? Call Northern Utah's authorized Connecticut dealer, Connecticut Quality Water Systems of Salt Lake. Call them now, 801-576-8600, or log on to softwaterutah.com and tell them Doug sent you.
Traffic and weather together. It's brought to you by Mountain America's My Style checking account with built-in benefits. Let's check in with Tito Nani.
Starting to see delays on I-80 westbound at 5600 West due to construction work, which is blocking the right lane. And in Utah County, we're in the cleanup stages of a crash at the southbound I-15 on-ramp at University Parkway in Orem. Whipple Service Champions, your cooling, heating, plumbing, drains, and electrical specialists. Whipple that away. Tito Nani in the KSL Traffic Center.
We are starting to see some windy conditions, and those winds have brought in the clouds, but they shouldn't bring in much precipitation, if anything at all. Looks like our next chance of rain looks like Tuesday at 10%, but they will bring in cooler temperatures. Today's high 83, down to 74 tomorrow, and then on Sunday, 60 degrees. It's 82 degrees. I'm Maria Shaleos from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at kslnewsradio.com. We are Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Inside Sources. Inside Sources. Utah's top political experts break down the first 100 days of the new administration and discuss the day's biggest stories. Only on KSL News Radio.
Leah, you might recall an interesting story from a couple of months ago about a couple of Utahns involved in an attempted coup in an African country, the Democratic Republic of Congo. And if you recall, there were a group that went there and tried to overthrow the government. It was failed, and they were charged there. They were imprisoned in the Congo. They faced the death penalty until this week. And it's a really interesting, kind of a convoluted story. But what happened was the Republic of Congo then commuted their death sentences, but made that into a life sentence and then expatriated them to the United States. So now they're back here, and they were charged very recently here in the United States. This was filed April 5th with a 6-count felony complaint. This thing is 82 pages long, charging them with everything from, well, mostly conspiracy to provide material support and resources to an overthrow of a government, conspiracy to use a weapon of mass destruction, conspiracy to bomb a government building, and these buildings are in the Congo, a conspiracy to murder and kidnap persons from a foreign country, and then transporting the firearms to the foreign country. 6 counts.
Okay, so legal analyst Greg Skordas, how come it is that if I'm an American who did something wrong in Congo, why would I be charged for that here in the United States?
That's the word conspiracy. So the conspiracy is the meeting of at least 2 people and planning a criminal act, and that crime occurs where the meeting took place.
Which I guess was in Salt Lake City?
Which was in Utah, right.
Okay.
So if you and I conspire to do something in Mexico or New York or something like that, we plan it here, and then we go to New York or Mexico and commit the act, sure, we could be charged with, let's say you and I plan to kill one of the senators in New York. We planned that all here. We get all ready. We get all our stuff together, and we go to New York and try to commit the murder. We could be charged in New York with murder or attempted murder. We could be charged in Utah with conspiracy to commit murder, even though it occurred in New York. Because the conspiracy is a criminal act all by itself. People getting together and plan a criminal episode.
All right, so let me ask you another follow-up question.
Sure.
So the Congo, what did you say? They commuted the sentence. Not commuted it, but reduced it.
Commuted is the right word.
From
yes,
death penalty to
life
in prison. Why are they here? Why are they not serving in prison in Congo?
They will. It's the same reason Lori Vallow's not up in Idaho. So she's convicted up there. She gets not the death penalty. She gets life in prison 3 times. But she also committed a crime in Arizona. So they're going to try her there. The same thing with these men. They've got the life in prison without the possibility of parole in Congo. The United States makes an agreement with the Congo saying, bring them here. Let's take them, and we'll take some of your minerals too, some of your cobalt, some of your diamonds, some of your gold, that type of thing, and let us take our pound of flesh. And it's not uncommon at all for different jurisdictions to take that to say, look, they committed a crime in your jurisdiction, go for it, prosecute them. And the Congo did, and they gave them the death penalty, which is commuted to life. Now they're in the United States facing what I believe could very well end up being a death penalty case. We don't know that yet. The government the Department of Justice hasn't tipped their hand. But yes, why would they be imprisoned in both jurisdictions? Because both jurisdictions want their bite of the apple. They want to make sure that the crime is punished where it occurred, even if it means they may never serve a day here. Lori Vallow may never serve a day in the prison in Arizona.
So they're actually not back here forever. They're here for the trial.
Right. However, since the Congo commuted the death sentence, if they are in fact prosecuted and this becomes a capital case, they will stay here. They will stay here, and because then our case sort of trumps the Congos. You know what I mean? We've got the death penalty where the Congo just has life in prison. And what would happen in those situations? So I answered a question that was probably a little incorrect. The 2 countries will just talk about it. What makes the most sense? I mean, they serve their time here? Should we serve it there? That's not a decision that's usually argued much. You know, who's going to house these people? But Utah's decided that they want the case for whatever reason. I was a little surprised when I read it because we saw what happened in the Congo, and it was a death penalty. You're kind of like, well, Doesn't get much worse than that. Why even
Right,
bother?
right.
But then they commute it, send them to United States. So there was something going on with the federal government, and we keep going back to this mineral rights and this mineral exploration and the ability to spend money in the Congo to buy minerals, and that was the ticket. That was the way that they got this brought to Utah. It's strange. It really is. What's also stranger is if you read this 82-page complaint, because it goes through all the planning. I mean, two of these kids met playing football together at one of the local high schools. You know, their dad went to Highland High. The kids played at Corner Canyon, I think, high school. I mean, and if you look at this, a couple of these defendants are 22 years old. I mean, they're just babies. And the crime actually occurred a while ago. So, ugh. You know, they were talking
like
about
how young were they when it happened?
Yeah, how old do you really prosecute somebody on a death penalty case?
So I just had a question about, like, how do I say, the jurisdiction, like where this is going to happen. My understanding is that Malanga Thompson and Zalman Poland are actually expected to make appearances in Brooklyn's federal courthouse. Then why is it?
I know what you're.
They're in one place and another guy is here. Like, where did that? Talk to me about why we're even talking about this here in Utah.
Okay, so my guess is the plane landed in New York. Seriously. And so they're taken into custody in New York in a prison there. They're going to be extradited to Utah because the crime is being prosecuted here. The filing is in the United States District Court for the District of Utah, but they happen to be in New York. And I think they were extradited to New York from Congo. So, yeah, they're going to appear at a Manhattan federal court there. They're going to be asked if they're willing to waive what's called extradition. You know, we can hold you here and make Utah come and prove that you're the people that are wanted under this indictment, or you can waive that and go to Utah. And I assume that's what they will do. And that's happening fairly quickly. And one of them happened to be here, apparently, and so he was just taken into custody.
Can I ask you another question just to follow up real quick?
Sure.
If New York is less death penalty friendly than Utah is, does that matter or no? Because it's a federal case. I mean, like, maybe I would rather be in Brooklyn when all this came down. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I understand. First of all, New York has no jurisdiction. They just happen to have the bodies. They just happen to have the people. You know what I mean? They have what's called personal jurisdiction. But they don't have subject matter. The crime didn't occur there. No acts occurred there. There was no conspiracy there. There was no coup there. Congo does. Utah does. That's where the two crimes occurred. New York is just a holding area right now. And it happens all the time where somebody, for example, commits a crime here in Utah and then they're found in West Virginia or something like that. West Virginia is like, hey, do you want your prisoner? And we do with this extradition process. So that's all that's happening in New York. And sure, New York doesn't have a death penalty.
Right. I just thought you said they would be asked if they wanted to waive their extradition proceedings. And I was suggesting maybe you'd rather be in New York when all this starts to go.
So I just said New York doesn't have a death penalty. I'm right. But the federal government does.
So it doesn't
and that
matter.
would be in New York anyway. So the death penalty follows the jurisdiction. And in this case, it's federal jurisdiction. And the feds, we didn't see any death penalty cases under the Biden administration. Trump's made it clear that he is going to seek the death penalty when it's available, when he can. And this is one of those cases when he can. Now, I may have overstated when I said he's going to seek the death penalty in this case, but I'm just thinking because it's available, because it's on the table, that the Department of Justice very likely will. Otherwise, each of these 6 counts carries 15 years in prison. So the significance of the punishment is great, whether it's a death penalty case or not. My guess is that the administration is going to seek the death penalty. Enough legal questions for the day. When we come back after the break, more about the Trump administration and their desire to establish federal control over the private Columbia University. More on that after the break.
Do you need new windows? Look, all glass pretty much looks the same to the naked eye, but if your windows aren't triple-coated, argon-filled and sealed double-pane glass, the cold is seeping in. You need to call Advanced Window Products. They use the highest quality glass and premium vinyl to create state-of-the-art windows and frames, and for 38 years, they build those frames right here in Utah. Custom crafted for Utah's climate. The best windows you can buy at prices 30 and 40% less than what the big companies charge because they cut out the middleman. They're the factory. They even give you a lifetime warranty, and right now as we head into spring, save an extra $2,500 off 10 windows or more. Custom windows that'll give your house a fresh new look and save you money on your heating and air conditioning. Advanced Windows offers 60-month 0% financing, even buy now, pay later, and an extra $2,500 off. Call for a quote. 801-850-9100. That's 801-850-9100, or go to advancedwindows.com.
Taxes was taxing. Now taxes is relaxing when you file for free.
I can file for free? TurboTax Free Edition. Roughly 37% of filers qualify. Simple Form 1040 returns only. See if you qualify at turbotax.com/free. I can file for free.
Now this is taxes. File for free with TurboTax Free Edition and get your maximum refund. No schedules except for earned income tax credit, child tax credit, and student loan interest. See if you qualify at turbotax.com/free.
With Progressive, it's easy to reach customer service with our app, website, chat, or by phone. Because when getting help is hard, it's not help at all.
Little help. A little help over here.
Thank you for calling Bench Press Assistance.
What?
Due to excessive gym volume, all available spotters are currently lifting heavy weights off the chests of other bench pressers.
Seriously?
Please continue to hold, and we will remove the barbell from your chest in the order in which your cry for help was received.
Getting assistance should be easy. With Progressive, it is. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates.
Healthcare with human kindness is here. It's at Common Spirit Health. Hospitals, clinics, and caregivers all connected to advance healthcare in Colorado, Kansas, and Utah. Together, we have a common purpose, partnering with you in health and healing using powerful medicine, powerful technology, and the greatest power of all, human kindness. You'll know it when you see it, because human kindness is in every care site and in every caregiver. Common Spirit Health. Hello, human kindness.
For over 22 years, speaking on business on KSL News Radio has been a beloved tradition, celebrating our heroic business leaders and Utah consumers who have helped build one of the strongest state economies in the nation. Now, under the stewardship of the Salt Lake Chamber and hosted by Chamber President and CEO Derek Miller, the program continues to shine a spotlight on those who make Utah's business environment dynamic and thriving. With his expertise and passion, Derek brings the stories of our business community to life. As part of the Salt Lake Chamber, Speaking on Business is proud to continue its legacy of highlighting inspiring stories, trends, and special guests. Support Utah businesses now and be part of Utah's thriving economy. More information can be found at slchamber.com. That's slchamber.com.
My name is Mac Davis, and I have been on the soda weight loss program for 14 weeks now. I have dropped 38 pounds.
Wow. That's amazing.
It's been remarkably easy to follow the program. It's been amazing.
Soda weight loss works.
Who would have thought that I would be able to lose over 100 pounds? I thought that there was no way that I could do that without having some kind of invasive surgery or diet pill or some other means.
Let Soda Weight Loss teach you the healthy, natural way to let go of the weight for good.
The best decision I've made in a long time was just to call Soda Weight Loss.
Join Soda Weight Loss with your partner and only pay for one person. Lose weight together.
Double the motivation, double the results, half the cost. Take advantage of Soda Weight Loss 2-for-1 partner program. Visit sodaweightloss.com. That's SOTA weightloss.com. Soda is, say it with me, state of the art.
When I have an asthma attack, I feel scared.
Prevent your child's next asthma attack. Call 1-866-NO-ATTACKS. Visit www.noattacks.org or call your doctor, because even one attack is one too many. Brought to you by the EPA and the Ad Council.
Say goodbye to expensive granite and say hello to luxurious style for about a third of the price with laminate countertops from Countertop Factory LLC.com. CountertopFactoryLLC.com.
Inside Sources. Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
We're beginning this segment with some breaking news. A federal immigration judge in Louisiana has ruled that Columbia University graduate student Mahmoud Khalil can be deported as a national security risk. We spoke about him, Greg, in the last hour of Inside Sources. Remember, Secretary of State Marco Rubio had said that Khalil should be expelled for his beliefs, that while his activities were otherwise lawful, letting him remain in the country would undermine U.S. policy to combat anti-Semitism around the world and in the United States, in addition to efforts to protect Jewish students from harassment and violence in the United States.
It'd be interesting to know, because there were two phases to that, which was, can the person be deported And is it a part of national security? Is it something that the United States, that the courts shouldn't override the administration's attempts to take an action like this? I am surprised by this ruling. I truly am. Deported as a national security risk for protesting Israel. I mean, isn't that
for
what
saying
it was?
that he was pro-Palestine?
Yeah. I mean, look, that's a tough pill to swallow.
Why?
For reasons. Well, I don't know. We allow people to come in the country, especially like a student visa. You're at a college. You would expect to be able to speak at the college, even if you're here under a student visa. And I think what Marco Rubio said, and we talked about this in the last hour, is no, come to our country as a guest, pay attention, be a good guest, and don't disrupt things, or your freedom, your privilege to be here in our country is going to be revoked.
So, Greg,
I have a hard time with that.
Let me ask you a question. Do you think it gets appealed? Do you think there are lawyers like you who are, how did you say, it was a hard pill to swallow and you were surprised by the ruling, who will then take this case and appeal it?
Before the show is over,
okay.
My guess is that'll be appealed.
I
mean, that appeal's probably already been written, and it'll go up to the Court of Appeals. I don't remember what jurisdiction this was, but I mean, it will definitely be appealed immediately, and it'll be appealed from there too. I mean, this could very well end up at the United States Supreme Court.
Okay, and when we discussed this in our last hour, we had someone who texted and said, "How would you feel if someone came to your house and said mean, horrible things to you? Wouldn't you have the prerogative to leave?" Greg, can you just explain why it is that the United States maybe should be held to a higher standard with regard to our guests and their rights and freedoms?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question. And of course, private property owners have different rules than perhaps the government does. I mean, somebody comes to my house and they start making anti-Semitic remarks. I guess I can say, get out of here. I don't know how I would enforce it necessarily. I'm not going to physically take them. But yes, you could probably do that. The United States, we have, the Constitution doesn't apply to me and my guests. You know what I mean? The First Amendment isn't designed to prevent Greg Skordas from quelling conversations in his house. It doesn't work. But the United States does. We have the First Amendment, and the government can't infringe on persons' rights to speak. I can in my own private home, if that makes sense. I mean, there'd be limits to that, of course, but when we think about the Constitution, it's the balance of power and authority. Power is not the right word. Between the government and the individual, and we don't apply constitutional provisions to individuals. I don't get to. The Fourth Amendment doesn't apply to me if I want to search my kid's bedroom. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So let's pivot, if it's okay, but staying with Columbia University.
Yes.
So this student is in trouble and is being deported for a pro-Palestinian protest, like his part in a pro-Palestinian protest at Columbia University last year. Mm-hmm. Columbia University is also now under, in the crosshairs of the Trump administration, who would like to have federal oversight of the private, very old, this is an Ivy League school, Columbia University. One thing I am going to say real fast is my children are going to college. I will not be sending them anywhere where the president thinks the federal government should be in charge of the university, especially when it's a private school like Columbia University.
But that is getting to be everywhere.
All right,
you may very
why.
well be in a position, Leah, where you can't send them anywhere because the government is looking at what they're using as the power of the purse, as you might expect, and then talking about grants. So the Trump administration canceled $400 million in grants to Columbia University.
Right, that's the power of the purse.
Right.
But another piece of this, so talk to me about this as a legal analyst, the administration is seeking a legally binding consent decree to enforce changes at Columbia University over alleged civil rights violations related to the pro-Palestinian protests that happen. Right. That's not just, I'm not paying for your research. That is, I am now running how students get to behave on your campus.
If you want to get our money. I mean, I think it's tied to that. Yes, I know what you're saying.
It's going to place the school under a judicial oversight, and subject to penalties for non-compliance.
Right.
That is something separate, I think, from just canceling grants. Talk to me about where legally the federal government has any authority to take judicial oversight over a private university. They can absolutely cut grants. Do I think they should? No, but they absolutely can cut grants. You tell me how it is anywhere in the United States Constitution legally okay for the federal government to tell a private institution like Columbia University what to do.
They can't, but they can as a result of, it goes back to the power of the purse. It goes back to the grants, Leah. I know that's because what the government can do is say, okay, if you're not going to play ball, boom, we're going to withhold all these grants. I don't know what else the government could do. I don't know what other sanction they could impose. They can't shut the university down. I can't imagine that.
But you also said they couldn't deport somebody.
I know.
For free speech.
That was an hour ago.
Yeah, are we in uncharted territory
Absolutely,
here?
on all these issues.
And what is it about these universities? Because it's not just Columbia University.
Nope.
Harvard University, the University of Pennsylvania, Brown University, Princeton, these universities. President Trump, I don't know, maybe he didn't get into them when he tried to go to college, but he's really got a bugaboo.
Sure, he does.
Right out for these universities.
And a lot of them are private universities. And so you think, well, what can he do to a private university? But he does control. I mean, think about Harvard alone lost something like $2 billion in grants. I mean, Columbia, which is a huge university, very prestigious, $400 million in grants over and contracts over anti-Semitism concerns. So Columbia goes, what can we do? Well, how about this consent decree?
But pause. The University of Pennsylvania lost $200 million for infractions regarding transgender athletes. It actually had nothing to do with anti-Semitism,
no,
right?
But it's the same idea, though. It's the same. You're not in line with what we think you should be doing. Whether you want to call it DEI, whether you want to call it anti-Semitism, whether you want to call it just speaking out against the government. I think what the government is doing, and this is really troubling to me, this is really problematic to me personally, is saying, you think like us, you act like us, you take into account what we're doing and quit your far left rhetoric and what you're teaching at these campuses and come in line, and you will continue giving you grants.
So let me ask you, actually follow up on the University of Pennsylvania.
Mm-hmm.
They allowed trans athletes to participate. When the Trump administration came in and said you can't, they stopped allowing it. They are getting their funding cut for actions they took before it was a law. I feel like that's a violation of ex post facto, which I do think is in the United States Constitution.
Yeah.
Am I wrong?
No, you're not wrong. But I think the government's going to look at it differently and say, okay, we're doing this as a punishment for something that you did, even though you cured it since. You still, I mean, if you steal if you go shoplifting at the store and a week later you bring the property back, it doesn't mean they can't still punish you.
Shoplifting was always illegal.
Right. Okay. You're right. You're killing me. But I know what you're saying. I don't agree with this at all, Leah. I'm on your team. I think that the administration is trying to find ways to get universities in line, and the way to do that is taking money away from them and setting an example. Yes, you did trans athletes 2 or 3 years ago. You cut that. We're gonna punish you for what you did. We're going to punish you for what you did, and maybe we'll make it right down the road if you step in line with something like a consent decree, which
right.
is
Although the thing is, the Columbia University signed that decree, and nothing is changing. So actually, there is no coming back once the administration decides to attack you.
But they're hoping that it does.
Yeah.
And that's why they did that.
Next up on Inside Sources, when is it appropriate, Greg Skordas, to erase history? Is it ever appropriate? What about all the awful, shameful parts of our history? We're going to talk about that after the break.
Good afternoon. It's 2:30 at KSL News Radio. I'm Jeff Kaplan, KSL's top local story. The Air Force is recommending bases across the country scale back the number of days off for service members. They say it's to maintain their competitive advantage. KSL News Radio's Alexandria Bonilla reports.
Service members will still have their 30 days of paid annual leave, but past days, also called family days, could be a thing of the past. Past days give service members an extra day off around the 11 federal holidays. An Air Force spokesman says having those extra days off doesn't help them achieve their mission of maintaining lethality and readiness. But the memo does clarify that past days can still be granted on a case-by-case basis.
The Air Force is only recommending that bases scale back days off. Hill Air Force Base hasn't confirmed whether it's going to follow the recommendation. Our top national story this hour from ABC News, China says it's going to boost tariffs on U.S. imports to 125% tomorrow. That's their answer to the 145% tariff from Trump against China. There are no talks toward easing this trade war, but the White House says that President Trump is open to a deal. Your money at this moment, the Dow today was up 619 points. Coming up, there's a breeze blowing now. What does it bring us for the weekend? Stay here. KSL Weather is next. KSL News Time, 2:32.
A reminder about the simplest way to get updated for your day.
Hit your KSL preset when you jump in the car, and we'll take care of the rest.
Hear key news updates and traffic reports.
Andy and Amanda from 5 to 9 in your car.
KSL News Radio at 102.7 FM.
Get a head start on the warmer months ahead with a $29 AC tune-up from Yes Air Conditioning, Heating, Plumbing, and Electric. Yes offers licensed technicians and an exceptional service guarantee to give you peace of mind and help prevent expensive breakdowns. Ensure your system is working at peak efficiency and help save money on energy costs with a $29 AC tune-up from Yes Air Conditioning, Heating, Plumbing, and Electric. Call now or visit theyesmancan.com for details, terms, and conditions. Just say yes.
At Intermountain Health, we believe life is a circle. May yours surround you with insight, a healthy perspective, trust, and reassurance. The belief that our differences aren't that different, and compassion just when you need it most. Life is a circle. May yours help you live the healthiest life possible. Intermountain Health.
Harbor Freight knows time is money, so for our Spring Black Friday sale, we're getting straight to the deals. Right now, you get 35% off jack stands, 56-inch roll cabs under $800, and 2,300 PSI electric pressure washers under $190. See? Straight to the point, so you can get straight to the savings. Whatever you do, do it for less at Harbor Freight. Valid until April 13th, 2025 while supplies last. Limitations apply.
What if your limited inventory had unlimited potential? What if your biggest risk was not taking one? What if you could make every move matter? Bank of America's Business Solutions can help bring your biggest what-ifs within reach. Find out how our digital tools, cutting-edge insights, and trusted expertise can work for your business. What would you like the power to do? Visit bankofamerica.com/banking for business to learn more. Bank of America is proud to be the official bank sponsor of FIFA World Cup 2026.
If you've got a gas-powered engine, keep it running like new at every fill-up. Stable in-season protection is your engine's preventative medicine, cleaning and protecting the entire fuel system in season. In outdoor power equipment, prevent gum and varnish buildup that could cause a rough or non-running engine. For cars and trucks, increase fuel efficiency and power by removing deposits, ensuring your engine's long-term health. Stable outperforms the competition in independent lab testing. So at every fill-up, start with Stable.
Seems everything costs more these days. Gas, groceries, and when's the last time you checked your wireless bill? When it comes to Big Wireless, if you're staying, you may be overpaying. Switch to Consumer Cellular to get the same fast nationwide coverage without the big wireless bill. Plans start at just $20 a month, and now for a limited time, new customers can get their second month free. Call 1-888-FREEDOM, visit a store near you, or consumercellular.com and start saving today. Plans include $5 credit for auto pay and e-billing. Taxes, fees, and other third-party charges will apply. See website for additional details.
Traffic and weather together brought to you by Mountain America's My Style checking account with built-in benefits. Here's Tito Nani.
Delays continue to build heading both directions on I-80 approaching 5600 West, all due to the roadwork and lane restrictions. And up north, we're seeing more construction in Weber County, causing heavy delays on southbound I-15 from the Ogden Airport down to Roy. Text us your traffic tips on the KSL Mountain Home Services text line at 57500. Murdoch Hyundai, home of 3.99% for 6 years on a Santa Fe, Tucson, or Elantra. I'm Tito Nani, KSL Traffic Center.
The KSL forecast, this breeze we're getting will bring a cool down. Tomorrow's high, only a breezy 74, then sunshine, partial sunshine on Sunday, the high only 60. But right now, 82 degrees. I'm Jeff Kaplan from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at kslnewsradio.com. This is Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Inside Sources. Inside Sources. Utah's top political experts break down the first 100 days of the new administration and discuss the day's biggest stories. Only on KSL News Radio.
Have you ever heard the phrase, Leah, those who forget their history are condemned to repeat it?
You know, I'm married to a high school history teacher, and my grandpa was a high school history teacher. So I'm going to tell you, yeah.
Not only have you heard it, but you've lived it.
Yeah, a little bit.
It's been a quote used by history teachers and professors for more than 100 years, showing the importance of learning from our history. History isn't always pretty. It can be raw, ugly, and sometimes terrible. President Trump's administration said they want to erase the kind of shame associated with some awful events. But is that the best move to ensure that we don't repeat atrocities of the past? That's the question we're asking. So let me just give you a couple of examples and ask your take on these. First, Major Lisa Jaster was the first woman to graduate from Army Ranger School, but that fact has been scrubbed from the U.S. Army Reserve and Department of Defense websites. Second, the participation of transgender and queer protesters during the LGBTQ uprising at New York's Stonewall Inn was deleted from the National Park Service website. I mean, we're changing history in a way that we're deleting history. You know what I mean? It's I don't know. I mean, what was it a couple of years ago when they were tearing down all the Confederate generals' statues around the country and destroying them? You know what I mean? It can go both ways, I guess is what I'm saying.
So here's the thing about the Confederate statues. So let's be clear.
Okay.
The Confederate statues were decisions made by towns and cities that didn't want those statues in their towns and cities.
As a representative.
Correct.
Right.
So let's be clear.
Sure.
If the city of Salt Lake wants to make a decision about one of its statues, if the city of Ogden wants to make a decision about one of its statues, and you go through a municipal local process, then those cities and towns get to make those decisions.
Good point.
So I actually don't see it as equivalent, right? These were small towns, and there are still Confederate statues around America, depending on the town you were in.
Sure.
This is the federal government who has decided that celebrating the fact that there was a woman who graduated from Army Ranger School, that we shouldn't celebrate that, right? That we're just not even going to acknowledge that happened, right? That we are going to just erase stories of, the Tuskegee Airmen, right? Like people who did amazing things in our history that we're not allowed to talk about them. What does Vice President Vance call it? Because it's an improper ideology.
Yeah, that's a real problem for me. I mean, we've been talking about speech on this show. We've been talking about the administration and sort of where we're going. Now we're changing history, or at least what people can learn and know about history. And I appreciate what you said about the Confederate statutes, but in some respect, it was those communities, and I know we're talking about a different thing, and I'm sorry I even mentioned it, saying, I don't know that we really want that to be part of our history, or at least we don't want that to be a demonstrable part of our history. This is entirely different. But the administration coming in and saying, that's not history. You would think the first woman to be an Army Ranger would be significant in a lot of ways, not just historical, but in terms of just promoting women, doing some great things, because that would have been a tough thing to do, to be the first woman to graduate from Army Ranger School. We think of that as this really difficult, trying program, and she did it. That says a lot for her, and it opened up the gates to a lot of other women to do similar things. And so I don't know why that was. Why would we? I don't even know why that discussion is even being held, I guess is my question.
So it's interesting to me. I'm sorry. I'm just going to pick on Russia. When there was a communist revolution, the Bolsheviks changed the name of St. Petersburg to Leningrad.
Right.
Right? Because what they were was here's the deal. It's an improper ideology to be Orthodox religious, so we're going to remove that and just call it something new. That is never a good direction to be stepping in, right? It is never good to say there is history that happened. We might even dispute the history. Right? We could argue what is good, what is bad. We should have those arguments. What are perspectives on what happened? We should have those arguments. But we should never go, St. Petersburg is now Leningrad, where we're just erasing the name of this city in an effort to further our own, what we would consider proper ideology. That is not a good thing to be doing.
Yeah, and that's what we're doing. Well, would you say the same thing about the Stonewall Inn? The discussion that's being having there being deleted from the National Park Service website.
Yes.
The uprising. I mean, we think of the Stonewall. That's a word that means something to a lot of us.
Right.
The Stonewall Democrats or the Stonewall Republicans or the Stonewall College group. You know what I mean? It's I don't know. It means something in terms of LGBTQ rights and uprising and whatnot. And it is history.
By the way, it's why that national monument exists.
Right, yeah.
Right, it's to kind of recognize that these riots happened. We had a particular group of people in our country that we did not treat well, and not the most recent, distant history, right? Like, you've got to remember these things, Greg, right? You've got to make sure. And, I don't know. The president says it's about learning shame. So he says he's erasing shame. But I'm going to tell you what, Greg, like, my family stepped off the Mayflower, and I am fully proud of the role my family played in this country's history, and I'm fully aware, of the bad things that have happened that my family would have benefited from. It's not shameful. Right. It is what it is. And then you talk about it, you own it, you name it, and you work on it to make sure it doesn't happen again.
Right. The same with slavery in the United States.
Correct.
And can you teach about that in the sense that it wasn't a good thing?
Right.
Can you educate people and say, this is something we actually did in this country 200 years ago? And people looking back going, boy, I hope we never do that again. For the same thing we talked about at the outset of this. You forget history, you're damned.
Right. And the other thing, too, that really bothers me about this whole line of inquiry is it presumes that when you read it, you wouldn't see yourself as a hero. So why is it that when I learn about history, I wouldn't see myself as someone who would have done the right thing?
Right.
Why would I only see it and go, oh, well, I would have been a bad guy, therefore I should be ashamed of what happened? No, I usually look at these things and I go, oh, no, man, I would have been somebody, right? Yeah. Like, who would have been doing, Underground Railroad. I would have been somebody who would have helped enslaved people maybe get to freedom, right? History teaches you all sorts of lessons, not to be ashamed necessarily.
Yeah, and I'm reading a quote from a Georgetown history professor, Catherine Benton Cohen, who said, I would argue that it's actually weird to feel shame about what people did in the past. You know what I mean?
Right.
In response to that it fosters a sense of national shame. It would be weird to feel shame about what people did in the past. I mean, what we did in the past is what we did, and we learn from it, not necessarily feeling shame from it. I mean, I don't want to talk myself into a corner here if we talk about certain things that are a little bit shameful, but the fact that they are shameful is why they're part of history, so that we don't repeat it, so that we don't go down that road again.
Or so that we think why things matter. So I will just tell you, I have my great-grandmother's first ballot because she didn't get to vote. She had a master's degree in education and wasn't allowed to vote in the state of New York because she was a woman. They came around to tell her, here, Mrs. Murray, here's how you vote, and they gave her a practice ballot. That woman, bless her heart, ticked her own names, right? She's like, I'm not doing what these guys tell me to do. That hangs on my wall. I'm not ashamed of that history in America. Right. I'm proud of the role she played. I'm proud she was educated and was ready to vote when they finally let her do it, and I'm going to talk about it always.
And I'm glad that when I took history, that I was able to learn those things. And I would hope that my grandchildren are able to learn those things for the same reason we've talked about here. I mean, it is history. You can't say it didn't occur. You can't hope that no one will know that it occurred by taking it out of the books, because it did. So let's talk about it. What does it mean? Maybe not as much as it did 20, 30 years ago. Maybe not as much to some people as it would ever mean. Maybe it's not that historical, but it is history. And I think we need to, are we going to go to a next step, the Tuskegee Airmen? Are we going to go to the next step, Amelia Earhart? Are we going to go start taking other things and go, at some point it becomes ridiculous. At some point it becomes silly. And boy, it's a slippery slope. Anyway, I'm just on a roll here today, and you're keeping me in line, and I appreciate that. In our next segment, I had a chance this morning to reach out with some of our homeless people and work with Utah's homeless courts. There's some other things going on nationally and locally as it relates to the homeless population. We'll talk about that after the break.
What's up, everybody? I'm Mike Wilson with Any Hour Services, and there's a good chance you've heard me talking about our free furnace sale. The one where you buy a new air conditioner and we give you a new furnace for just the cost to install it, about $400. Well, we still have a few more spots on our schedule we need to fill, so I'm extending the sale, but I'm not quite sure for how much longer. Definitely no later than April 30th, and once I think our schedule's full enough, I gotta pull these ads, so don't wait too long to call and schedule your free estimate. The main reason we do this sale is to give you an incentive to help us keep our guys busy when the weather's mild. And thanks to your help, we're able to keep our guys and keep growing. So if your furnace and air conditioner are ready to be replaced, you owe it to yourself to at least schedule a free estimate and get all the details about our free furnace sale. Just to recap, when you have Any Hour Services install a new air conditioner, we'll give you a new furnace for just the cost to install it. About $400. The furnace is free, you just pay the labor. If you think you might be interested, call Any Hour Services at 801-443-7400. You can Google Any Hour Services. You can even schedule online at anyhourservices.com. No one helps more homeowners than Any Hour Services.
Hey, Green Gobbler here. So you've got a clogged drain in your bathroom. Water in the sink's overstaying its welcome. You're spitting today's toothpaste on top of yesterday's toothpaste. You hope that it go away. Yeah, clogs don't just go away. I make them go away. I'm Green Gobbler, the only clog dissolver you need. I'm bleach-free, safe for your pipes, and I work. Guaranteed or your money back. Because I never met a clog that was gonna unclog itself. Green Gobbler. Let the gobbler get it.
Seems everything costs more these days. Gas, groceries, and when's the last time you checked your wireless bill? When it comes to big wireless, if you're staying, you may be overpaying. Switch to Consumer Cellular to get the same fast nationwide coverage without the big wireless bill. Plans start at just $20 a month, and now for a limited time, new customers can get their second month free. Call 1-888-FREEDOM, visit a store near you, or consumercellular.com and start saving today. Plans include $5 credit for autopay and e-billing. Taxes, fees, and other third-party charges will apply. See website for additional details.
In today's fast-paced economy, staying competitive means more than just experience. It means standing out with the right knowledge and skills. An MBA from BYU's top-ranked full-time or executive MBA program will give you that advantage. Whether you're looking to move up in your current career or pivot to something new, becoming a BYU MBA can give you the edge you need. You'll gain critical leadership skills, hands-on experience that will set you apart in today's rapidly evolving job market, and become part of an incomparable alumni network. The BYU MBA gives you a top-ranked education at the leading edge of business that's focused on principled leadership, all for an extraordinary value. Scholarship money is available to help you make your MBA goals a reality. Apply soon. Final application deadline is May 1st. Get ahead of the competition. Advance your skills and transform your career. Learn how you could become a BYU MBA. Visit mba.byu.edu.
Do you hear buzzing or ringing in your ears? Tinnitus is real, but so are solutions. Dr. Lane Garrett, a tinnitus specialist and author of Take Your Life Back, invites you to a free tinnitus educational event where you'll learn about real treatments that actually work. This free event is Thursday, April 17th at 7 p.m. at the Hampton Inn in Orem. Here's Dr. Garrett.
At this event, I'll explain what causes tinnitus and when you should be concerned. I'll also talk about the latest research and separate facts from fiction. And finally, I'll talk about treatment options, including Lanier, which was recently approved by the FDA for the treatment of tinnitus.
And here's the best part. Everyone who attends gets a free copy of Dr. Garrett's book, Take Your Life Back. Plus, you can schedule a complimentary tinnitus consultation at one of 2 Utah clinics. Seats are very limited and they fill up fast, so don't wait. Visit whydomyearsring.com or call 801-770-4133 to RSVP for this April 17th event to learn more. Let's quiet the noise and bring back your peace. Visit whydomyearsring.com.
Troy, I don't know if you know this, but we're a big deal.
Are we?
Oh, yeah.
Can you be a big deal and still live with your mom?
Who do you think told me? But honestly, who else but Bitches brings back show pricing on all RVs this far into spring just so everyone gets the best price possible?
That actually is a really big deal. No one does that.
See? We are a big deal.
The sale is a big deal.
The big deal is talking.
Get into Bish's RV for second chance show pricing for a limited time.
We're talking travel trailers starting under $129 per month on approved credit.
Clearance pricing on all remaining new in stock 2024s.
And enjoy 0 payments until July. OAC.
And here's the really big deal. Every RV purchase gets free propane refills for life as long as you own the RV.
Start shopping the best deals now at bitches.com.
Don't miss your very last chance at the best show pricing deals around. Only for a limited time at Bish's RV of Salt Lake and American Fork, where memories begin.
Based on approved credit, 20% down, 8.99% APR for 180 months. Stock numbers 89912-81734. Subject to prior sale. See dealer for details.
Inside Sources. Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
People experiencing homelessness tend to face some unique challenges that most of us might not think about. To help with some of these unique issues, the courts hold like a homeless outreach program with regard to the judiciary. Now, what I want you all to know is I walked in today to KSL, and my co-host, he and I have been doing this together since, time immemorial. And for the first time like ever, he's not wearing a suit. Greg Skordas, you're really dressed down.
You're right. I appeared in court this way, too.
Because the court today was...
homeless court.
And what does that mean? Tell us about it.
It was really interesting. It's something we've been doing for quite a while, Leah, here in Salt Lake County, and I think other states do it. But it's hard to get certain groups to come to court. It's hard to get people to pay attention to what they've got going and to clear up their warrants, to clear up their cases, to make sure that they're on track with probation. So Salt Lake City has, and we've been doing this for some time, set up a homeless court. Today we were at Pioneer Park, and believe it or not, there were probably 30 tents. One tent had a judge, a sitting judge with her staff there. I was at the defense attorney tent. There was also tents for providers, drug providers. There was actually a tent today where people were getting their hair cut. It was so beautiful. I wish you could have been there. But at any rate, we had these people, a huge line of people who are saying, a guy comes up to me, goes, hey, he was next in line. I ran his record. I found out that he had 5 cases in Salt Lake. He had one in West Jordan. He had one in South Salt Lake. Now, I couldn't deal with West Jordan and South Salt Lake because we only had Salt Lake judges there. But I went and talked to the prosecutor. I talked to the judge. We got his cases worked out. We got him lined back out with one of the drug treatment providers here in the county. We got him lined out with a center that's going to help him find a house. And he couldn't have been happier. But he was scared to death because he's looking around going, Am I going to get hooked up today? Is somebody going to take me into custody? And instead, he walked out of there with 4 less warrants than he had when he walked in, and he's lined out with services.
So talk to us about this, Greg. These warrants are not like DUIs or domestic violence or like assault warrants, right? Like
they're not felony warrants.
Right. All right. So tell what are the kind of things you might see?
Most
not
of
this
them,
case specifically, but what might you say?
No.
Yeah.
They were mostly misdemeanor warrants. Trespassing, alcohol, intoxication, things like that. Just people that, they kind of don't have a place to go, and they're picked up by the law enforcement officers on the streets. His were just petty like that. Nonetheless, you do the crime, and you have certain things you have to deal with. Now, a DUI could actually have been one of the calendars we did today. The cases I worked on, he was just one example. I think I had about 6 or 7 individuals that I helped, but none of them, like you just mentioned, were very serious. However, we did have a felony court judge there as well. She appeared virtually, so we appeared in her court. Again, I've got a T-shirt on here and a sweater, and she was in her chambers, so she wasn't wearing the robes necessarily either. And we said, okay, he's got a warrant, and she said, I'll recall the warrant, and I'll schedule court for next week, but he has to be here then. So in other words, he gets kind of a King's X. We're going to say, look, because we can't deal with his problems because they were serious. It was a felony, and it was for not appearing. But he appeared today. He appeared on the grass at Pioneer Park with an attorney, and I said, Your Honor, he's here. Tell us what we need to do to get this warrant cleared. And she said, I'll clear it for 5 days, but you're going to be in my court next Wednesday, and then we're going to address the underlying concerns. He couldn't have been happier. And there was even one of the rescue missions had this food line there, and the line just to get food. It made you think how people need these services.
Yeah. So why does it matter? Like, I want you to what did you say? He couldn't have been happier, right?
Yeah.
And I have to say, as someone who's never really had warrants out, does that make sense?
Right.
So I don't really know what that means in a lived experience. But I've got to think it's hard and stressful. Why does it matter that the court kind of meets the people where they're at, right, to do this work?
That's a great question, and it obviously doesn't happen for you and I. I'm not going to get somebody to come up to the Ogden Valley and say, "Here's court, Greg," because
to Powder Mountain when you're skiing.
Yeah, to Powder Mountain, right?
Yeah.
It's not happening. But there's also a recognition that without these specialty courts, some of these issues will never be dealt with. And so then you have a person who's vagrant there. Let's say that one of these individuals that I dealt with today that had warrants was drinking tonight and got caught in some sort of situation, and they were found to have warrants. They would have been taken into custody. Police officers would have had no choice. Police don't like to arrest people on petty warrants. Jails don't like to take people into custody on petty warrants. But you can't just leave them hanging. You've got this going. So why it matters is because we had lines of people. We had people that were before it started at 9 a.m. and the place was packed at 8:30 when we got there. People are there saying, I'm glad somebody cares. I'm glad I can clear up my problems. I'm glad I don't have to look over my shoulder tonight. He even said that. This one guy, he's like, well, so am I going to get arrested when I leave here? And I said, no, but you got to show up in court next Wednesday, and then you'll be okay.
Do you show up in court with him next Wednesday? Like, are you his lawyer now?
No, I'm not. I was just the lawyer for today. I told him I would, and I might, just as a courtesy. And I got some of the court dates for these people. We were scheduling them, and most of them have public defenders. The public defenders are stretched really thin, and they did have a group there, but there were so many people that were looking for services that some of us in private practice were there as well. My whole staff was there. We shut down our office today. We had our own tent, the Scortis Law Firm tent, where we were dealing with individuals, and they were just sending them to us. You'd get a text with so and so's name on it and his or her criminal history, and you'd go, okay, I need John Doe to come over here. You'd call their name, they'd come over, and you'd sit down and go through all the cases with them. And one of the people there they all touch you, they all break your heart. We set court next week. There's no question I'll go, because we developed a little bit of a friendship, and I think that he trusted me because we got his warrants taken care of.
And you are a bleeding heart, wonderful person.
Well, no, I don't know that that's true. I just, for some of these people, I mean, I don't know, Leah, it was... I even sent a picture to my children, who are all adults, and just said, this is what's going on. And they were just sending me these incredibly nice responses, like, Dad,
good job.
You're doing a great job.
Right.
And this
You're doing
is
the
really
Lord's
cool.
work here.
Yeah. And I think it's really important. I'm glad we're doing that. I'm glad we're getting judges that will stand up and do that because, a lot of us were volunteering our time. I was going to say judges are. They're not. I mean, they're getting paid no matter what. But there were a lot of people there that were volunteering. There were a lot of services there. There was food. There were things being provided to everyone.
I love this, right, Greg, right? It's not just the legal assistance. It's like, while we have you here, do you have pets and they need pet care?
Exactly.
While you're here, do you need, a vaccine? Or you've got a chest cold.
Healthcare, right.
Do we need to take care of that? While you're here and we're clearing up some of these petty charges, maybe now you're actually eligible for a job.
Right.
Because maybe you couldn't apply before, right? And now you can.
Because you were scared to go in and apply for a job because you had warrants.
Because you had warrants.
No, and we were lining him up with there. And our job services were there helping people. And home services were there helping people find homes. I thought it was cool that this barber shop, I mean, these people were professionals. This was I would have stood in line for these haircuts. These people, they had this whole huge tent. They probably had 8 barbers there. I'd love to find out what that group was. And they were full. I mean, everyone was there. And this guy comes over to me and he goes, "Hey, I just got my haircut." And then he said, "You should too." It was beautiful.
And did you? Did you
No,
get your
I went
haircut?
over there. I said, "Hey, can you do anything about the fact that my hair makes me look like I'm 90 years old?" They're like, "Yeah, you pay us later on.
Yeah,
Just come back and stand in line,
You
make
don't
an
get it for
appointment."
free,
Yeah, you don't get
right.
the free haircut. But I don't know. It was just, and I couldn't even tell you all the services that were there. There was so many that were there. There were probably 30 or 40 tents, and after you were through with one person dealing with like court, for example, you'd say, "Okay, let me take you over here. Let me take you over there." It was really rewarding.
Yeah, no, and I think it's so important. We got a phone call yesterday here at KSL from someone who is homeless who said, "Man, you can lose everything, right? It's so important, these services that you are providing." Thank you so much for being with us today. Monday's Inside Sources will be hosted by Adam Gardner and Taylor Morgan, beginning at 1 p.m. Have a lovely weekend.
KSL FM Midvale.
KSL Salt Lake City.
From the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios, this is KSL News Radio.